What was the time on that?
5 to 7.
5 to 7.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Welcome, guests. A great man was lost nearly 20 years ago. The world doesn't know this. He was a quiet man who lived a quiet life. If you Google his name, there are no relevant results. He may not have done anything amazing, but he was a great man. My grandpa. He was born in Cuba, New York, on the family farm. It had been passed down through generations since the Civil War. He grew up during the Great Depression and joined millions of other men to fight World War II. He was a sailor in the Navy. He traveled throughout the South Pacific, seeing way more than most farm boys can say they've seen. When he came back from the war, he married his sweetheart. They bought their own small farm and had 4 children of their own. Eventually, they sold that farm, and he moved his family back to the family farm, where he continued the tradition of raising cows, growing hay, and producing maple syrup, carrying on the tradition of this farming on the land that had been passed down through generations. Well, eventually his children had children. I am not only the youngest of my parents' 5 children, I am youngest of my grandparents' 7 grandchildren. I am the baby. You might think I'm spoiled and I always get my way. I just think of it as I had less time with my grandpa than all my other grandchildren for him. But the time I did have with him was very important to me. You see, I spent lots of summers on the family farm. The attraction for me were the horses. But I also did spend a lot of time with my grandpa, watching him work and helping him when I could. One of the other animals on the farm were cows. I remember my grandpa would open the door, let the cows in, and scoop the feed, and while they were eating, he'd milk them, and then they got to go back outside. Then the fun part started. What goes in must come out. There was a gutter behind where the cows would stand, and we would push all the manure, cow patties if you will, into that gutter, and then start at the end and push it to the other side where a manure spreader was waiting. I did the best I could. I had a little red plastic shovel. Didn't do much against those cow patties, but my grandpa was strong, and he had a big metal head shovel with a strong wooden shaft, and he would push and shovel all the way to the end. It was a dirty, stinky job. He made it look easy. To take care of the horses and the cows, to make sure that they had food, my grandpa made hay. A lot of equipment is involved in making hay. You have to mow the hay with a hay vine, which is a large mower. Sometimes it would have to be greased, and my grandpa would show me what the grease pins look like and how to use the grease gun and say, okay, now you go underneath and grease the hay vine. So I'd lay on my back and I'd wiggle, and then I'd find the grease pins and grease them. When I came out, oh, I got them all greased, Grandpa. I felt so important because he included me in that job. After the hay was mowed, we have to make sure it was dry. Crinkle it, smell it, then it was time to rake it. We used a big contraption with metal spokes, and it would spin and take the hay and turn it into big rows of hay that could easily be collected by the baler. I would get dizzy watching my grandpa go around and around that field, mowing and raking and baling. Did he ever complain? No. It's just something that he had to do. My grandma would send me to the field with a thermos of cold water for my grandpa because he was working in that hot summer sun. I would swing it along the path, so happy to go and see my grandpa. He would see me, smile, get down, pour some water on a kerchief, and wipe his sweaty brow, take a little drink, and then get back to work. And I would come back to the house feeling so helpful that I was able to provide him with a cold drink of water. Not all time was spent outside. He also had a woodworking shop where he would spend hours making things out of wood, from coat stands to benches. And I once helped him make a mantel shelf to go over my parents' gas fireplace. He cut the lines straight for the top and drew a nice wavy pattern for the bottom, and he used the saw to carefully cut it. Then he let me sand it. He handed me the power hand sander and turned on, and I went, he's like, no, that's not how we sand. But the damage was done. There were wavy lines in that smooth wood surface, and no matter how I sanded it afterward, those lines remained. When I go to my parents' house now, I can see that mantel shelf and see the wavy lines and remember my grandpa and how he could make anything. And he was just challenged by the limit of his imagination. If you don't know anything about farming, you know that farmers wake up early. He was always sitting at the table when I came down for breakfast, and when I walked in the door, sleeping, not quite awake, he would say, there she is, Miss America. I might not have brushed my hair or washed my face, but he made me feel beautiful. And I always sat down with a big smile on my face. I have a lot of memories of my grandpa, of him driving horses and parades and horse pulls, of rocking on his recliner while we watched the news. I don't have enough. You see, he was taken from me with emphysema, a lung disease that he had developed because he was smoking from the Navy. I never saw him smoke, but it definitely took a toll on his body by the time I came around. So that strong farmer became weak and bedridden and hospitalized. He knew his time was coming, so he gave us something to remember him by. He said, when you see the X's in the sky, you know, when a jet plane flies up this way and you can see the trail it leaves behind, and another one flies this way, he says, that's a hug from me. So you know that I'm watching you, and I love you. So he was a great man. He spent the last 10 years of his life telling me I could do anything. He never told me I couldn't do it because I was too little or a girl. He just said, try. We can all make someone feel important. There's nothing we can't do. After all, as Dr. Seuss said, you may be one person to the world, but to one person, you might be the world. My grandpa, Leonard Bixby, was my world. He was a great man. I thought so, and I think everyone he knows thought he was great too. And when I see the X's in the sky, I know he loves me, and I can do anything. Thank you.